Okay.
For this week's Parsha, my bags are packed. I'm ready to go. Where am I going? Eretz Yisrael. What do I have in it? Nothing. Why? Simply this. First of all, I don't have to pack clothes because the clothes I wore are still on me for the past years, right? It's going to last. Don't need food. I have the mind. So what do I really need? I just have to get it to Eretz Yisrael. But unfortunately, this is not going to happen. This week is Parshas Shalach. And it teaches us a lot of things. First of all, the power of speech. Does anyone recognize this? See this thing? When you press it, it says, it speaks to me. I speak to it. And what happens? My words turn into text because words have power. Words create a reality. And we're going to see how it happens in this week's Parsha. Very quickly, who was sent? 12 spies. But only 2 of them came back with the proper kind of report. And who are they? It was Yehoshua ben Nun, and it was Kalev ben Yefuneh. Just a hint about their names. Kalev means Kalev. What was in his heart is what he expressed. And ben Yefuneh, he was the one who was free from the influences of the negative spies. So you have right in the name a hint of what happened. And again, we have Hoshea's name. He was Hoshea ben Nun, and then it was changed to Yehoshua because Moshe realized that because of his humility, he might be subject to the negative influences of the other spies. So he gave them the Yud. In the name, it says, you will be saved. Now, where'd that Yud come from? Does anyone know? Sarai. Sarai used to be Sarai, but her name was changed to Sarah. And that Yud came down from her. Why? From her specifically, because she is the one who felt so strongly about the right to inherit the land. Because when Yishmael and Yitzchak were both born, she said the inheritance should go to my son. And of course Hashem, standing by women, this is not a pro-feminist, but he said, listen to your wife. I think that should be the most famous quote. Listen to your wife, especially when she speaks this way. And of course it's going to be inherited through Yitzchak. So he said, Sarah had this strong connection. She felt so powerfully connected to the land. Let the Yud from her name go and be part of Yehoshua's name. Now what do we see about? We learned 2 more things from what happened, how they transpired. Yehoshua ben Nun and Kalev ben Yefuneh. When Kalev goes, where does he go to daven? He goes to Hebron. Unfortunately, both Kalev and Yehoshua had some of their ancestors' negative qualities, which eventually had to be eradicated. What was it? Yehoshua is a descendant. Yehoshua is a descendant from the tribe of Ephraim, right? And Kalev is from the tribe of Yehuda. Yehuda, unfortunately, at one time in his life, slandered when he went. Not slandered exactly. He actually was a little deceitful with his father when he showed the coat. He showed the coat, and it turns out that the coat was not Yosef's. But anyway, so he had to overcome that. And Yehoshua had to overcome the other trait, which was the trait of slander, which he got from Yosef, his ancestor, who slandered his brothers. Anyway, these 2 traits were eradicated. Kalev goes and he prays at Hebron. From there we learn a very important lesson that when you need refuahs and yeshuas, that is why we go to pray at the grave sites of important people. So we learn that. Also, we learn about a minyan from this whole incident. Why? Because they were called minyan. There were 10 people, 10 spies that did not act the right way. And from those 10 spies, we learn when 10 people get together, Hashem called it a kahal. And we want to praise Hashem, we use a minyan. So we learned about minyan, we learned about kahal. But the most important thing we learned is the power of words. They said, we were as grasshoppers in our eyes and so too in theirs. When we feel a sense of self-esteem, when we see the positive in things, when we understand our purpose, when we use words to build and create, that's the most powerful. And we see it also to look at the internal, not the external. And this is a good shidduch lesson from Miriam and Kalev. They were married to each other. Miriam was 40 years older than Kalev. So if you think someone's 4 years older or 4 months older or 40, you can still go out with them. Learn a lesson from Miriam. Why? Because Kalev was able to see past her external and into the internal. She said she was sickly from all the work she did and how hard she tried. So therefore, she was young looking. Once she got married to him, everything turned out right. So of course, Moshe understood that someone who could see the internal, the inner beauty, the real thing, is the right person to send for this job. So in the end, we learned 2 things. One, the power of speech, speak positively. Also in this week's Parsha, just for all of you to know, there's challah. The challah, because the challah was given to them, they were nervous, they were never going to get in. The 40 days turned to 40 years that they were. But challah is some mitzvah that they do in Eretz Yisrael. And again, tzitzis. And tzitzis are blue. There was a blue part. Why? Because it's supposed to remind you of the ocean, which reminds you of the sky, which reminds you of the stone by Hashem's chair, and the chair. So why? Because everything is in steps. So we learn step by step you can improve. Step by step you have to learn how to use your speech for positive, and learn from Kalev and learn from Yeshua. Look at the positive, speak positively, and appreciate the power of words. Wow.